They want to remove me, to silence me, to discredit me. They have tried to stop me in every possible way, from taking my finances to imprison me, to slander me, to linking me to Darren Osborne and extremism. Now they want to take away the final thing I have, my voice. I don't doubt one day they will wipe me off social media completely, forever. They will take away my right to defend myself when I'm slandered in the press. The media will be able to tell you whatever they want about me, and I'll have no way of responding. If they can do it to me, they can do it to you. One day you won't be able to reach me on social media at all, or watch my videos on YouTube. But they're going to try and stop this at every level. They already are. I'll deliver this speech on your behalf. I'll read this speech out. So the government haven't won, because I can't sit there and think that you're letting them win. If they stop you giving the speech, then they win.
I'm curious though, like, you've been faced with death so many times. At this point, does it even frighten you?
No.
And where do you expect that it's going to end?
I sit here now and I accept the full reality. At some point, someone's going to get me. Yeah, that's going to happen. I know it's going to happen.
So you're willing to die for
but
it?
I know that's no matter. I know that's where it's going to go. But once I've accepted that, I'm not scared of that.
Do you think you could be arrested again, and possibly in the future?
When I see the head of counter-terrorism on national TV bringing my name up alongside one of the country's worst jihadi terrorists and putting us as the same, and then I see them involve me in a court case that had nothing to do with me, and then I read your Home Office letter, which clearly, that's my government, and what they say is I'm a far-right extremist leader who incites racial hatred.
Not letting me into the country simply because I want to interview you.
Oh, they're going to take me out. They're going to remove me from this.
But I got to say, Tommy, at this point you have so much support that it would be one hell of a battle.
A chillingly prophetic comment there from Tommy Robinson from several months ago. So, the moment has arrived, and a lot of people would prefer to deny the reality in front of them, to simply say that this isn't the moment. This isn't the right time to speak out and protest. There will be another time, sometime down the line. If you keep doing that, if you keep thinking that to yourself, there will be no more moments to freely express yourself down the line. You'll just keep putting it on the long finger. It is now or never for Britain. The problem is, if you're reporting on the loss of freedom of speech in your country and then you capitulate to demands for silence on this issue, your silence becomes consent. Britain has not been a free country for some time now. In my opinion, and in the opinion of many, Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner, and the mainstream media who continue to tarnish his reputation and character, painting him as far right, they are the useful idiots doing the bidding of the authoritarians in power. No longer is there a question of what we must do when the tyranny arrives, because the tyranny is here. This is what it looks like. If the worst possible outcome happens and Tommy tragically dies in prison, as he has said in the past he fears he might, it seems to me there are three possible options for people living in Britain. Number one, to protest and speak louder in defiance of a tyrannical government. Number two, do nothing and cowardly accept that you're not free anymore. Or number three, leave the country. Censorship and political persecution of dissidents, it begins with people like Tommy Robinson, but it won't end there. They will shift their attention to other forms of wrongthink and the purveyors of that wrongthink shortly thereafter. The thought police have a way of getting around to everyone who disagrees with their regime eventually. And by the way, Tommy was simply filming outside the court that day, reporting on the grooming gang trial, doing the journalism that so many seemingly won't. Tommy actually sought permission to film there, and the only information he used was that which had already been released by the mainstream, so he was being very careful about what he was saying on that live stream. He received permission from the police, and they said it was fine to do what he was doing, only for them to then change their tune and arrest him under suspicion of breaching the peace. So anyone saying that Tommy's reporting could have potentially compromised or disrupted the grooming gang trial in some way, you don't know what you're talking about. Given how fast he was sentenced and carted off to prison, it sounds to me, and to many, like his previous conviction was merely used against him to get him in jail, to get him silenced and out of the way as soon as possible. And this gag order now on the media is just insane. It's making real journalism unworkable. There seems to be no freedom of the press in the UK anymore. I expect this kind of media blackout from a communist country like China. I also want to say to the British police who go along with this, you're a disgrace. Where are your protests against your superiors and government? If you disagree with what you're being asked to do, with the ridiculous hate speech and hate crime bullshit that you're told to enforce, then why do you do it? I'm speaking specifically to the police who have gone along with all of this insanity over the past few months and years. You are traitors, in my view. You're contributing to the problem and betraying the British people. I'm so sick of hearing these arguments about you're just doing your jobs, right? You'd lose your job if you didn't follow your orders. Well, it's some job, isn't it? A steady paycheck. Is that all that it takes for you to compromise your principles, values, and morals and betray your country? All right, the Nazis also said they were just following orders after the fact, by the way. Amazing how these same people will probably consider themselves to be good, decent, honest, hard-working British people, but the fear of losing their income, and they'll arrest anyone and permanently ban a woman from a country for a social experiment that hurt nobody, or arrest somebody for smearing bacon on a door handle, or a man gets a fine for a joke on social media. Right? You're doing this. Right? A person should be held responsible for their own individual actions, and if your actions are contributing to the enforcement of tyranny, I really don't care what your justification is. Right? I get it that you're trying to put food on the table for your family. But when your kids have no rights or freedoms worth talking about in the future, at least they'll know who to blame. An unfree future is not worth living in, and things can get much, much worse. The British government surveys and spies on its citizens without their consent online, and with Orwellian new powers like Snooper's Charter, for example. It convicts people of hate crimes by determining the context and intent of their own words. If you're the one putting handcuffs on innocent people, it doesn't matter that in your heart you know that it's wrong. It doesn't matter that you feel a twinge of regret or disgust. The only thing that matters is your own individual actions. You knew it was wrong and you did it anyway. To me, that just makes you little more than a hired thug, a mercenary willing to do what your authoritarian masters tell you. Here's an ex-police officer talking about what happened to Tommy Robinson, how disgusted she is at the state of British law enforcement. It sure wasn't like this in her day.
I used to think that I missed being a police officer, but I'm absolutely over the moon that I am not in the UK anymore, and I'm not a police officer there, because I think it's shameful, shameful. I have made a formal complaint to the West Yorkshire Police. That's all I have to say. I really don't have any more words. I'm actually quite upset. I am, and I don't normally get like this, but this is just... I don't know what else to say.
Well, I guess what happens next is entirely down to the British people. I'll conclude by saying I sincerely hope it doesn't take Tommy Robinson's possible death in prison in order to get people to speak out about what's happening in their country. Just be aware, they're counting on you to be afraid. So afraid that you'll even self-censor.